Rose Washington with Tulsa Economic Development Corporation, and I've been asked by the Tulsa Community Business Group to some extent moderate or host this forum. So we're going to start with the state office, and we have one representative here, and then we'll go into the district judges, and then last we will hear from city councilors. This is candidates. This is a very informal forum, and so what we'd like to do is give each candidate here about 5 minutes to share with you whatever it is they want to tell you about themselves, about the position that they're vying for. And I'd really like for them to share things with you that you've never heard before from them, something that makes them special and makes them stand out to you.
Good afternoon. Mike Workman of Tulsa, Democratic nominee statewide for Labor Commissioner. That's what we call the elevator speech. What can you say in about 5 seconds? And everyone has to communicate something like that. I'm in my 18th and last month campaigning and used to be a candidate. Now I'm proud to say I'm the nominee of the Oklahoma Democratic Party statewide for Labor Commissioner against a 4-year incumbent. And I wish I could not mention them by name, but I'm going to have to because I have to build a case for why they shouldn't stay and why I give you a better alternative. There'll be several differences between me and the current non-working anti-labor commissioner. First, I refer to him as non-working because he puts in a grueling 1 hour a week in the office. We pay him full-time for a full-time job and he shows up less than an hour a week. In other businesses, we call that a ghost employee, and these are not the kind of people we like to have on the payroll. No, it's not illegal for a statewide elected official to spend less than an hour a week at the job, but it ain't right. I also refer to him as the anti-labor commissioner because he became best known shortly after election when he was asked how he felt about public employees, and he said they should be treated like feral hogs, F-E-R-A-L, hogs. We're not talking the cute little Arkansas Razorback mascots. It was an insult. When he was asked, did you really mean to refer to public employees as feral hogs? He says, oh no, I meant school teachers. Now, even if you're not a former or current public employee like me, and even if you're not a current or former public school teacher like me, many people were insulted. When he was asked to resign or apologize for that comment, he did neither. Neither one. He's finally made a comment. He said it was an unfortunate animal analogy. But the very office that was created in 1907 at statehood to protect and promote the wage earners of Oklahoma is the one person who is known as the worst statewide elected official in Oklahoma. Unfortunately, the competition got a little tough and that title passed from Marq Costello to Janet Costello Barisi. That really is her name. Janet Costello almost became the Barisi, the Costello sandwich. The race just above me is the education race. It's governor, lieutenant governor, education, then labor commissioner, and then the 2 U.S. Senate seats. So I encourage you to look at the role in what I would do differently. What I would do differently is restore the respect for the wage earners of Oklahoma. Every man, woman, and child who works needs to have respect shown to them. And one of the things that really was my tipping point to consider running is another thing he did in the wrong way was to close the Tulsa office. There used to be about 12.5 staff down there just west of the city convention center in the state office building. All but 3 of those jobs were eliminated. Those 3 people are now working out of their homes. But the way you work to protect people in the workplace for asbestos problems is not to cut the number of asbestos inspectors, and that's what he did. The way you protect workplace safety is not to cut the number of workplace safety inspectors, and that's what he did. When you cut the number of inspectors, you cut the safety levels for workers. So on the second day of office, I will reopen the Tulsa office. The governor, the attorney general, several agencies all have staff in Tulsa, and the entire eastern half of the state should not be denied staff offices on this half of the state for the Department of Labor. Well, unfortunately, under federal and state laws, the labor commissioner in the Department of Labor does not have any discretion in that area. When you take a job, you accept the conditions for that job. And unfortunately, Oklahoma's an at-will. I wish we had different laws, but we don't. So I have to answer you.
Not talking about at-will. Several states are at-will.
Right. How I feel about it, I think if people have circumstances that should allow them to not have to take those overtime hours, I would help intervene. But right now, under current law, you have to administer the laws we like and the laws we don't like. That's a law I don't like, is that you can be required to have overtime to keep your job. I don't think people should lose their job because of that personally, but unfortunately, I have to be honest with you, that's the law. Now, one of the laws I would like to see change is the minimum wage law, because no one should be working 40 hours a week and still be below poverty. If the Congress or the legislature doesn't increase minimum wage to $10.10 an hour, I will help lead a state question to help put it on the ballot. We also need to eliminate the exemptions to minimum wage, such as food service workers, and we also need to start working by example towards a livable wage of $15 an hour. So that's the sort of thing that, again, would take a change of state law to help the workers in that workplace situation. And the Department of Labor and the Labor Commissioner do not have discretion to intervene other than simply to say how they personally feel. And that's an honest answer to an honest question. Well, as you can imagine, the current legislature and state government is not overly generous about appropriating money for staff lines. There's been about 85 different staff people statewide in the Department of Labor. And the 18 people that were there before, it would probably be appropriate to have fewer people, but the state office building, if it can't be there, we just need to rent space somewhere close by. It will probably not be 18 staff positions. It'll probably be more like 5 to 10 people in all. But the problem is when those jobs were eliminated, he did the wrong thing in the wrong way. When a state job is eliminated under state government, you're supposed to notify the Department of Commerce that notifies workforce development so they can help get these people jobs in public sector or private sector so that they don't have to draw upon unemployment. These people were told through a voluntary buyout that their positions would be listed as being eliminated. Some of them in Tulsa are still looking for jobs, and when the voluntary buyout was finished, they're now being told in seeking other jobs that they were fired for a cause. So again, he did the wrong thing in the wrong way. And the problem is the Labor Commissioner and the Department of Labor is supposed to be the very office that keeps these types of workplace problems from happening. These people could file a complaint for their wrongful termination, but unfortunately they'd have to file it with the Department of Labor. And that's not just irony, that's a tragedy. So I would reopen it with existing budget lines, which we can use, and we'd also try to have temporary offices like one day a week in other places, like the second Monday in Muskogee, the third Wednesdays in Wilburton or Woodward. We need to make sure that we have a better access to these departments. There's several dozen offices, licenses that are available, and if you need a plumber's license or electrician's license, you need to be able to get to the Tulsa office to apply to get that license. We used to have certified people at places like Tulsa Tech. When someone got a welding certificate, they used to fill out the paperwork and they could also get their state license at the same time. They can't do that anymore. That's one of the first things that was eliminated under the current Labor Commissioner, and that's something else I'd like to have put back in. And that wouldn't take staff in Tulsa. That would simply take designating an existing staff member like at Tulsa Tech, like we used to have under the previous Labor Commissioner, and even the one before that. So it's not a party issue. It's been that way before, but we have less access to the licenses and the protection of wages, benefits, and working conditions that we used to have because the entire eastern half of the state no longer has staff access. It's about 4.5 blocks northwest of the state capitol building.
That's the only one we got?
That's the only one we have in the state. And again, there's been about 85 staff people, and it's like I said, we've had several pieces of state government that have staff here in Tulsa or in the eastern half of the state. But we inspect elevators, we inspect amusement rides. I mean, we have elevators on the eastern half of the state. We have amusement rides, more than just the Tulsa State Fair. These are the types of things that need to be protected. Again, workplace safety is not protected by cutting the number of inspectors like the current anti-labor commissioner did. We need to make sure that the workplaces are safe, because when it's safe for the people who work at the place, it's also safe for those of us who go and do business there. Let me tell you something you don't know about me. I have a 20-year-old granddaughter and a 2-year-old great-grandson. This is where someone politely says, oh no, you couldn't possibly be old enough to be a great-grandparent. But I promise you, I'm 64 years old. This is not a job I'm looking to get so I can run for higher office. This is a retirement job. But it didn't do exactly the math, but 21, 21, 21, you can get to a great-grandparent real fast. I have a 2-year-old who was born here in Tulsa, a granddaughter who's 20 who was born here in Tulsa. These are the people I need to look out for. When my granddaughter was working at Chick-fil-A, her check was short a couple hours every check. And it turns out that everyone in the store was having that problem. I told her all she has to do is file a complaint, and the Department of Labor would help get her the money that she has earned. But they cannot respond unless someone files a complaint. She never filed a complaint. If you take a job and you're short in your paycheck what you were promised, and you can document that you worked it and you were promised it and you didn't get it, you don't have to go to small claims court. The Department of Labor can investigate and do binding arbitration to get you the money that you were promised and you earned. The Department of Labor should be protecting your benefits, such as health care, including Obamacare. Should be protecting your workplace safety. I want you to hold up 3 fingers for me for the letter W. Now, regardless of how you feel about the previous White House occupant, the letter W is a good letter and we can leave no letter behind. Now hold up 4 fingers for 4. Remember on November 4th to vote for the persons of your choice. My granddaughter helped me with this hand signal. Then hold up the letter L so it looks like it's from your side. If you're left-handed, you need to reverse it. That's Workman for Labor. Now you add .com and you have a website. And if you see me and I pull off the upset, and believe me, I know I'm an underdog. If I pull off an upset and I see you across the room and you don't have a chance to come up and talk to me, just hold your hands up and go, Workman for Labor. And I'll know you've heard me in person before. Or someone's helped you with a hand signal. So again, I appreciate your time. It's my 18th and final month. I live down near about 61st and Yale. Been in Tulsa now, this is my 15th calendar year. So I appreciate your consideration. Do vote, and don't take 5 people with you, take 10. Take 10. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the Tulsa Community Business Group for putting this organization on, or putting this event on. I am Tanya Wilson. I'm running for Tulsa County District Court Judge, Office 2, Judicial District 3. My opponent is Sharon Holmes, not Jill Wild. Just to tell you a little bit about me, I am born and raised in Tulsa. I'm a graduate of Booker T. Washington High School, Langston University, and the University of Tulsa College of Law. After law school, I started working at the DA's office here in Tulsa County for 7 years. I prosecuted simple assaults, murders, and children who are in DHS custody, trying to find them permanent homes. And that is what I've been doing for the last 5 years as a Tulsa County Juvenile Court case manager. Another thing about me is I am the mother. My daughter, who is here, is a junior at Booker T. Washington, who is an honor student. Taylor. I also volunteer in the community as well as help mentor young lawyers. I'm currently a coach for the BALSA, which is the Black Law Students Association's organization at the University of Tulsa College of Law. So I believe in giving back. I was trained well, and so I believe that it's my duty to also train young lawyers. And I've been doing that for the past 4 years. Anything you don't. Believe it or not, yes, I thought I always wanted to be a lawyer, but for a time period after I graduated high school, I thought I wanted to be an archaeologist. I know. But I went to Langston University, and unfortunately there's no archaeological programs there. So I had to switch back to law, but I did want to be there for a while. It's something nobody knows about me. Any questions? Actually, no, the position that we're vying for was held by Judge Jesse Harris, and he recently retired in May. Let me say this, my opponent and I are good friends, very good friends. We're sorority sisters. What makes me, I believe, in my opinion, a better opponent is one, my experience, not only as a prosecutor, which afforded me the ability to try cases, again, from simple assaults to murders, but I was also not only in the courthouse every day, I was in the courtroom every day. So whereas a defense attorney may have one case on the docket, I had them all, which made me have to also look at each case individually and decide how to best settle that case. Sometimes it meant that you had to take that case to trial to get justice for a victim. Sometimes it meant that you had to look at the perspective of the defendant. Maybe he did something stupid, and does that mean that he should be held accountable for that for the rest of his life? So sometimes you have to being justice or giving justice means you have to give somebody a chance to rehabilitate themselves. And currently, as a juvenile court case manager, I work with a judge. So that gives me the opportunity to look at it from docket management, which is helpful if I become the judge in this county. You know, there's a lot of cases on the docket, and judges have to make decisions, have to get cases moving, and I think I have that experience. Yes, there's a lot of things that need to be changed. I think there are a lot of first-time offenders who are going to court or to prison, which we need to reevaluate that, especially if they're nonviolent crimes. Should that be a case where they should be given rehabilitation? But the other thing I think, which is important to me as a prosecutor, we need to, as a community, get more involved in the judicial system. We need to make sure that we do our duty by being on jury duties. We need to make sure that we're involved in the court process and also voting. Yes, there should be alternative programs for men. I know many of us who work in the court system know about Women in Recovery. That is a great program that helps women who have maybe substance abuse problems, who may have had nonviolent crimes, get that chance to rehabilitate themselves without going to prison. That opportunity should also be offered towards male. There should be a male in recovery program. I know there are a lot of opportunities for men as well as women through our drug court program, which we have one of the best programs in the nation. And we need that male perspective as well, because I understand that women, we're mothers. We hold the family together. But there are also a lot of men out there who are also raising their children, who also need that opportunity to be the parent for their child and not just automatically go to prison. Wow. Law school is hard. Law school is hard. You have to be devoted to it as far as being committed, reading. When I went to law school, I was a young mother. My daughter was 4, I believe, at the time. So it was also hard for me coming in as a non-traditional student, so it required a lot of my time. But the one thing I would tell you, don't be closed-minded and think that you want to go in a specific area. Be open to all areas of law. Because believe it or not, I never thought I would ever step foot in a courtroom. I didn't like speaking in front of people. Not gonna happen. Was not gonna do it. My first job was at the DA's office. So guess what? I had to start talking in front of people. So don't go in there with a closed mind and think that you just want to go in this specific area. Be open to all areas. But also understand that if you're not committed to it, if you don't put in the work, you're not going to be successful. That's a good question. I think part of the issue is that we have to start at the legislature. I mean, let's be honest, the prison system is a billion-dollar industry. So are they going to be quick to change that to fund other alternative programs? Probably not. But that is our first stop that we have to look at. But we do have to look at organizations inside of our community, nonprofit, churches. Our churches need to do better about coming in and capturing our youth in our community, and also putting that money into nonprofits. I haven't been too much involved in that fight, so I can't tell you an intelligent opinion about that. They can, because they're involved in it. Yes. But the last thing I want to tell you about me is my commitment to this community. I'm born and raised in North Tulsa. Everything I am and everything I hope to be is because of North Tulsa. I didn't move into North Tulsa because of a opportunity became available or because this position became available. I have always lived here, and I will continue to live here after this race is over because I believe in North Tulsa.
My name is Jill Webb. Like we said, I'm not running against Tanya Wilson, but I will be on your ballot. I'm running against Kurt Glasgow. We are on the ballot on all of Tulsa County and all of Pawnee County, so it's a huge district. Just a short little bio. I'm from Midland, Texas. I went to Texas A&M University. I was a school teacher for 8 years. I taught English, psychology, and philosophy in the high school. Everything from very rudimentary kids who had trouble reading all the way to gifted and talented classes. And then I went to the Peace Corps. I served in Armenia, and I lived in a convent with nuns and orphans, and I taught both of them English, and it was one of the best experiences of my life, and also one of the most difficult. And the thing that you might not know about me that I wanted to say next is when I got back from the Peace Corps, I was 34 and didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, and this is how I became an attorney. I was in Chicago, and I'd never, ever been to an African-American church before. And so it was my first time. It was like 300 people there, and it was a very different church experience than what I was used to because I was raised Catholic and then became a Unitarian, so it was very stoic. And the music was great, and everything was fabulous, and the preacher was talking, and the preacher said, it was about redemption was the sermon topic. And the preacher said, raise your hand if you know and love somebody who's in prison. And every single hand in that church went up except for mine and my friends, who were the only white people there. And what I felt was that my eyes had been opened in the sense of I realized that my experience of the police, of the government, of authority, of neighborhood, of everything was extremely different than the people who were around me. And then the minister said, keep your hand up if they had a good lawyer. And every single hand went down. And you know, sometimes you get called to Christ at the altar, and that didn't happen to me that day. But I got called to be an attorney, and honest to God, I was in law school within a year, and that's why I became an attorney. And I started to work for the public defender's office in Tulsa right out of law school. That's what I wanted to do. So I spent most of my career, all of my legal career really, 95% of it in criminal defense. First as a public defender, and then I've been on my own, and that's most of my practice. So this is why I'm running for judge. So I'm very frustrated with the rehabilitation part. In the way that we do sentencing. So the way that it works right now is that I stand next to my client, who's almost always a felon, and the judge says, not just my opponent, but nearly every judge in Oklahoma, says, it's Monday, I'm gonna let you out today, I'm gonna put you on probation, you be good. And then my client is usually high that night, right? And I know that it's probably not gonna work, probation. The judge does, everybody does, but we pretend like it's gonna work. And then we go on to the next case, and we pretend again. And so it's not just doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. This is doing the same thing over and over, knowing the result is gonna be bad, because people fail at probation over 75% of the time. Knowing the result is gonna be bad. And we do it anyway, which to me seems to me like is a new level of insanity. So I was standing in court probably a year and a half ago, and I just thought, this is absurd. And is there another way to do this? So I started to do research and found Judge Alm, who started a program in Hawaii that has spread to 17 states. And the reason that I'm running is nothing more or less than I want to try it here. So what I would do and what Judge Alms does and what they do in Alaska and Hawaii and a lot of other places is I'd say, it's Monday, I'm gonna let you out of jail, you're on probation, you're coming back on Friday. I'm gonna drug test you and I'm gonna make sure you've seen your probation officer. If they test positive for drugs or they haven't seen their probation officer, I'm gonna put them in jail for the weekend. And then I'm gonna let them out on Monday and say, I care about you and I'm watching you, you come back on Friday, you be straight and you get right with your PO. And then as they're successful, you can space the court dates out. Every place that's tried that, every single court, literally from Alaska to Hawaii, has reduced the recidivism rate by half. Half. And that means that half of those people who would be in the penitentiary, who were paying for $35,000 a year for their every need, whose kids have to go to school and say, my mom or my dad is in the penitentiary. Half of those people we can save and they can be with their family. It saves us money, it keeps us safe, and it is worth trying. It works a lot like drug court, because like Tanya was saying, we have one of the best in the country. But in drug court, the only people who can get in are people who have never had a crime of violence, who weren't caught with a gun, or who don't have possession with intent. So it means if you're caught with 3 bags of methamphetamine instead of 1, you don't get into drug court. You get into regular probation, where they don't really monitor you. So we're monitoring most closely the least dangerous people. We're monitoring least closely people who are drug dealers and people who are violent. So what I would do as part of my court is take first people who are violent, people who get caught with guns, and methamphetamine addicts in particular, and monitor them closely. And if the criminals in Oklahoma are like the criminals everywhere else in the United States, it will make a dramatic difference. And hopefully, I would like to be an example for how sentencing is done. in Oklahoma. Sure. The question is, what makes me different than the person that I'm running against? Judge Glasgow has done the status quo since he's been a judge. So there isn't anything innovative that he has done on the bench. I'll say that first. Second, last month, what happened was, let me start here. In 2013, he made a promise to a defendant who said, look, if you plead guilty, I won't give you anything more than 25 years. The guy's name is Beauchamp. Sentencing came, Judge Glasgow gave him 40 years. So the defense attorneys balked, they went to the Court of Criminal Appeals. Court of Criminal Appeals said, you've abused your discretion, Judge Glasgow, you can't do that. The guy gets his plea back, he's no longer pled guilty. And then this year, same thing happened, except for it's with a guy named Brady. Judge Glasgow said, Mr. Brady, you plead guilty, I'll cap it at 25. Sentencing comes, he gives him to 40 years. So instead of going to the Court of Criminal Appeals, this time Judge Glasgow takes the defense attorneys off the case, appoints a good friend of his, and that good friend says, you know what, Mr. Brady is just perfectly fine with the 40 years. You can go on to your next thing. So they subpoenaed, this is last month, I'm not talking about ancient history. They subpoenaed Judge Glasgow, defense attorneys, his friend, and the state's attorney, and put him on the stand, the witness stand, last month in Judge Caputo's court in district court. And Judge Glasgow said on the stand, I never said I was going to cap it at 25 years, never happened. And then the two defense attorneys got on the stand and said, yes, he did, I heard him, I was in chambers. And then the state's attorney got on the stand and said, I was in chambers, I heard him say it, and not only that, I felt, and this is the prosecutor's words, I felt screwed because I had a good case and I knew he was going to get more than 25 if he went to trial, and I felt like he took it away from me. So every person who testified on the stand, who were attorneys, testified contrary to the testimony of Judge Glasgow. So before any of that happened, I would say that you should vote for me because I have a plan that I think can make a significant difference in the safety and the financial stability of this community and of this state. But after that, I don't understand. I think he's disqualified himself. And I don't know another way to put that. And if he were here, I'd say the same thing. Yeah, that's a good question, because at first it's going to increase the size of my dockets because I'm bringing people back who would ordinarily just be off acting like a ragamuffin. However, after 6 months to a year, I'll have the smallest number of dockets because like on Monday, it's not unusual for a criminal docket to have 100 people on it, but a lot of those people are there for probation violations, so they're going to be sentenced to the penitentiary. After a year, I'll have the smallest docket if everything works in Oklahoma like it works everywhere else. So I'll have to work harder at first, but goodness sakes, it's worth it. So that close monitoring is usually what happens is the judge says, okay, you're on probation, go see your probation officer, and then the probation officer is responsible for monitoring. Well, if they don't show up for the probation, then nothing happens for 6 months until the probation officer says, hey, court, nothing's happening. What I want to do is make sure that that I know what's going on with those people on probation, because the probation officer can't give sanctions. A probation officer says, oh, look, you've tested dirty, you're going, into jail for the weekend. That's just not something that they can do. It's something a judge can do. So by forming a relationship with those probation officers, and I've talked to the people in probation, they would like to have a relationship with the judges. By doing that, then we can actually make those sanctions swift and consistent. Because what we're doing now is basically, it's like telling a kid, I've got a 4-year-old. I don't tell her, well, 6 months ago you did something wrong, so now I'm going to punish you. Like, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for anybody. So what you do is, when they mess up, you immediately sanction them. You don't, just bury them in the ground, but you give them a consequence and give them another chance if what they've done is mess up. That's a good question. At first, they're supposed to meet with their probation officer immediately, like within 24 hours, and often they don't. And then after they've established a relationship with a probation officer, it very often goes to every month, and then sometimes even further spaced out than that. So the probation fee will stay the same. What I'm asking people to do isn't any different than what they're already supposed to do. I just want to sanction them swiftly for not doing it. They're already supposed to be getting drug tested. They're already supposed to be checking in with their probation officer. Their probation officer should be able to call on the phone and check on where they are at any time. That's just part of the deal. So I'm just making the consequences real, but not crazy. I don't have jurisdiction over them. So that's one of the reasons why I'm running for judge rather than legislature or city council or anything else, because the judge has jurisdiction over the people in his or her courtroom, and particularly over the people on probation. So that's where you can really make a difference. So if I have jurisdiction over those people and I make a difference in my courtroom, since the defendants are randomly assigned to criminal courts, my court should be dramatically different because I'm doing this. And that will set an example for the rest. And if it fails, then the worst thing that could happen is what's happening right now. We've got a crime rate that's 18% higher than the national average, which is ridiculous. So if I fail, it's not any worse than it is now. But if I succeed, the benefits socially and financially are enormous. I don't think that I need additional staff. I mean, it's not a big secret that judges usually don't work 40 hours a week. So I might have to actually work 40 hours a week, I'll give you that. But we'll have an honest wage. I think I could do it. No, they would only pay the $40 once. Yeah, for sure. Thank you, guys.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I thank for the invite, and thank the voters for showing up. My name is Virgil Wallace. I'm a citizen of Tulsa County. I've been here all my life. I'm a native. Been running businesses for over 25 years. I have 6 kids. I got 2 of them back there with me and my niece. My deal is I'm looking at public safety and fire in our streets and our city budget. You know, what can we do to better it for District 3? District 3 has lost a lot in a whole lot of years. And I want to work with our city councilmen to make District 3 a part of Tulsa, not exempt from Tulsa. District 1 and District 3 has always been exempt from Tulsa. And I want to try to find a way to make them not exempt anymore.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm David Patrick, current city councilman, District 3. I was born and raised right here in Tulsa 63 years ago. I've been married for 44 years to the most wonderful woman in the city of Tulsa. I got 2 children, 4 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandson. I'm the owner and operator of Patrick's Auto Service. I've been operating it myself for 44 years. And so my son's a Tulsa firefighter, my daughter works for TU, and my grandchildren all live here in Tulsa and go to school here. I got into politics back in '96 because I kept saying, somebody ought to do something. Somebody ought to do this. And I figured out, well, that somebody could be me, and so that's what happened. I stepped up to the plate and been involved ever since. The most important thing about a city councilman, and probably may be the #1 thing that he needs to do or she needs to do, is be able to work with their colleagues and the administration. Because if you can't work with your colleagues and your administration, you cannot be effective in the decisions that you make for your district and for the city of Tulsa. I've been fortunate enough to work for 4 mayors and 6 different city councils. And I believe I've been effective in each and every one of them. And I want to continue doing that to be effective, not only to help my district, but to move the city of Tulsa forward. We got some very important issues coming up in the next year, and certainly want to be involved in getting those in place and getting them passed. Will certainly improve our public safety, improve our economic development for our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose, and thank you all for showing up today. It is a beautiful Saturday, so to come into a library and listen to a bunch of politicians talk to you is, we appreciate you being here. My name is Skip Steele. I graduated from Edison High School, went to college in Nebraska, a school by the name of John F. Kennedy College. Have a 4-year degree in business. About 3 years ago, like a lot of other people on the council, the city was somewhat in turmoil. There was not a lot getting done. There was constant bickering and fighting between various bodies within our city government, primarily between the council and the mayor. I put myself on the ballot simply because, as a citizen like you, I saw an opportunity to be engaged with the understanding that we can all disagree about anything. We can find something to disagree on, but we can also find things to agree on. And so 3 years ago, this council went to the mayor, and we sat down and had, for the first time, I believe it was the first time in history, the council and the mayor had what they call a retreat. Now, in my world, a retreat is some fancy, nice place that you go to, some warmer climate. But apparently, in the Tulsa's definition of a retreat, is a 4-hour meeting on a Saturday morning. So we went to that retreat. We had all 9 counselors present, and we had the mayor present. It was a long meeting. We met for 4 hours. We had a lot to talk about. There was not one negative word mentioned in that meeting. That meeting was focused on what's best for Tulsa. All 10 people in that room cared about the future of Tulsa, and all opinions were heard and posted on the board. It was, I've been told, an historic event. After that meeting, we were given the opportunity to each vote on what we felt were the best ideas of all the ideas that were posted. And each one of us had equal number of votes, all 10 of us. And out of that, we created a work list of things that we could work on together. Now, if you think back at what Tulsa was 3 years ago, and you think and look at what's happened in the last 3 years, I think a lot of it came from that meeting, that we all agreed to work on common things together. I think that has made a world of difference. And it's simply a matter of making up your mind that you're going to find something to agree on. We can always find things to disagree on. People often ask me why I ran for this position. I remember even calling my mom after I put my name on the ballot, and she said, "Why would you want to do that? Nobody likes those people." And it was about trying to make a difference. You all would not be here if you didn't care. We don't do this because we get a big bang out of it. We do this because we honestly care. And that's what I think you see in the council that you have seated. So it's been a great honor and a privilege to represent the city of Tulsa, specifically my district, which is District 6, by the way. It's in East Tulsa. That's east of 169 between Admiral and 41st, basically as far east as you can go. I was trying to think of something you might not know about me, but since I'm a relatively new person on the council, most anything I do you don't know about me. So I will just say this. You read in the newspaper things that are happening within city government. You hear every day something that's happened either in the mayor's office or in the council office. I think what you don't hear about is the things that we all do on a regular basis, and that is listen to our constituents. We're all assigned the same number of people to represent throughout the city. And to me, the most important part of what we do is resolve problems for our citizens. I love these town hall meetings. I attend as many as I can. I make most every town hall meeting that we've ever had. And I have my own town hall meetings in my district. But the council is really, in my opinion, the definition of a counselor is to represent the people in his district, to make sure that when you come to the table, when you come to cast a vote, you're casting a vote for those people that you represent.
I'm GT Bynum. I'm running for the City Council in District 9. It's great to be here. I believe the only constituent of mine in the room is Mr. Workman here, who paid my opponent's filing fee. So I don't think I'm going to bring him around today. But the decisions that I make impact you. And so I wanted you to have a good idea of where I'm coming from, both as a counselor and a candidate. I want to start out with, we're talking about things about us that a lot of folks don't know. My wife started law school this year, and so it is inspiring to see 2 women running for judicial posts who've been through that, because I have a great appreciation. We're only a quarter of the way through the first year, but Got 2 3/4 to go. These are tough ladies here to get through that process. I ran for the city council in 2008, and the reason I ran is because my family has been here since the 1870s. My great-great-granddad came here from Alabama when there were 200 people here. He came here to get away from the family farm and worked at a trading post in what is now downtown Tulsa. And when he came here, it was wood buildings and dirt streets. And it was basically a place where people could get their cattle across the Arkansas River. And I think about what it was like when he came here then and what it's like now when my kids are growing up 6 generations later, and what a great city it is. And it's that way. It didn't happen by accident. It happened because people cared. People built the city up from what it was. And I wanted to play a part in that, in making it the kind of place that my kids would want to raise their kids in one day. So I ran, and in the time that I've been on the council, I've really tried to focus on some big things. In the time that I've been on the council, we've spent more on street improvements than we did in the previous quarter century combined. We created the first municipal veterans treatment court in the United States at the city of Tulsa. We had the first rainy day fund in the state of Oklahoma for a city. And those have all been things I've played a role in, but the important thing is, what do I want to do over the next 2 years, which is why I'm running again. And it comes back to, I think, one of the big reasons is the question that was raised earlier about the fight going on between the city and the county over the jail. And ultimately, what all of that comes back to is parochialism and turf battles, because you have governments that were created over 100 years ago in the case of the city of Tulsa, and they made a whole lot of sense when we were 10, 15, 20 miles apart. But we've grown in 100 years. And so now you have a lot of cities all abutting each other. You have a county government that originally was created to handle unincorporated areas, but there really aren't a whole lot of unincorporated areas left. But yet, those governments are still set up the same way they were 100 years ago. And you have people that get elected to jobs in those governments, and then they feel like it's their responsibility to protect their turf. And that's what this jail, the whole jail debate is about, in my opinion. The county is afraid that the city's trying to rip them off, and the city's afraid that the county's trying to rip them off, but 60% of the county is made up of the city of Tulsa. It is mostly the same people paying the money for both sides of the government in that case. I'm leading an effort that I think can help resolve this somewhat, and that is leading an effort on the Arkansas River. There's a reason that in today's era, we're tearing rec centers down in North Tulsa instead of building them like we were 40 years ago. Why we're laying police officers and firefighters off or making them take pay cuts instead of hiring them like we were 40 years ago. And the reason for that is that people from the suburbs aren't coming to Tulsa to shop anymore like they were back then. 40 years ago, they were subsidizing our business. They were bringing their sales tax dollars here and then going home. But then they wised up and realized they could create their own strip malls and things like that. And this isn't something that's unique to Tulsa. It's something cities all around America face. But the cities that have overcome that have focused on a few key world-class assets that they have, that they can capitalize on, that bring people back into their core. We're doing that with downtown Tulsa. We've done a great job of investing in it over the last 10 years. I think the Arkansas River provides us with that opportunity as well, and that's why I'm leading that effort. I appreciate you all having this. It's seriously the only candidate forum I got invited to this cycle, so I was excited to participate. Thank you.
What exactly that has to do with the lack of investment and priority?
Absolutely.
Okay, but you're making it sound like, oh, well, see, that's why we're not doing anything in North Tulsa, because, see, this is perfectly fine down here. No, it isn't. It should be a priority for the city of Tulsa to invest more in North Tulsa, to give people in North Tulsa a place to shop, to give incentive for shoppers to come up here. I'm not quite seeing, okay, sales tax, please explain to
Yeah, no, the issue, and I'm not talking about South Tulsa, I'm talking about Bixby, Broken Arrow, Sand Springs, Jinx, Owasso, all areas that have had a huge sales tax boom over the last 40 years, while Tulsa has grown at a measly percent over that period of time. And that, in Oklahoma, we're the only state in the country that says cities can't use property taxes for operations. And so the good part of that is it keeps our property taxes lower than other states, but the trade-off is that we're relying on sales tax. Well, if your sales tax is, you had people for decades coming here and spending their money, but then all of a sudden they realize, oh, we can build our own Walmart in Owasso. We don't have to go to Tulsa anymore. Well, suddenly we're not getting a lot of our services subsidized like we were before. And so other cities that, and again, we're not unique. Every major city in America has seen that happen in the last 40 years. But there are cities that have handled it well and cities that haven't. And the cities that have handled it well have said, here are a few things that we have in our city that are world class and that will draw people here not just regionally but nationally and internationally. Let's invest in those. And to me, it's just my opinion. In Tulsa, we have 3 of those things. We've got downtown Tulsa and hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure there. Owasso isn't going to build downtown. We have the river, because there's only one of those. Not going to build one in, somewhere else. And then Gilcrease Museum, which gets overlooked all the time, but is arguably the greatest collection of Western art in the world, and it's here. I mean, Crystal Bridges is getting a lot of attention right now because it's brand new, but you ask any art expert, our collection at Gilcrease totally destroys that place. We have to capitalize on those things that draw people to come here and spend their money so that they'll leave it here. You often hear about, well, we need to create jobs. Job creation in Tulsa is only important if those people are living in Tulsa or spending their money here. If you're creating jobs so people can go live in Owasso and spend their money there, then all they're doing is tearing up the streets in Tulsa. All the lifeblood of our police, of our firefighter system, of our streets, and to your point, any investments outside of federal funds that we get to make in North Tulsa, it comes from sales tax. And so we got to be smart about doing those things that will cause people to bring their sales tax dollars here.
But the council unanimously supported almost a $4 million investment in the shops on Peoria. And so I do believe that any opportunity that we present that makes a good business case, even if it's non-traditional, because typically a shopping center like that is done with private dollars. But they made an exception and invested several $1 million to get that built for our community. So I do want to point that out. And then the other issue that someone has to deal with is the loss of sales tax revenue due to online shopping.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed that many stores in the mall have closed because their online presence has increased and people buy online as opposed to going into stores now. So that's not an issue you guys can, I think, attack.
We've tried, but unfortunately, that's a federal government decision to make.
Okay, sir.
It's gonna be a lot of work because I'm gonna have to work with a lot of the nonprofits, a lot of the neighborhood associations, and a lot of the community people to work together first, to come together and start investing back into our community instead of going to Owasso, instead of going to Bixby. And then at the same time, people who have businesses like you, get you in our district and start doing business in our district and getting our people that's in the district to spend money in that district so we can have that tax dollar to build our infrastructure. So we won't have to go to Owasso and Bixby. And at the same time, before you go to Owasso and Bixby, buy your gas here, buy your drink in your own district before you go to Owasso. Do the things that you can leave your tax dollars here before you go to Owasso and Bixby and all those other places. Don't try to do all your business there. Do some of your business here before you go there. And then another thing that I'm going to have to do in District 3 is get everybody involved. That's the problem in District 3. It's also a problem in District 1. People just need to get more involved. with what's going on in the district.
It takes a long time to do that because when people and businesses leave, it's usually because it's been a rundown area. And so we as a city have to approach that and identify the blighted parts that need to be taken care of, the old infrastructure that needs to be updated to where we can try to attract businesses coming back in. And like I say, that takes, you just can't do it overnight. And it takes an area plan or a sector plan to put together, and then you have to identify funds to get rid of the blight and the crime. That usually comes right in after everybody leaves. Once you get that under control, then start improving your roads, your sidewalks, and make it desirable because development is done by the private sector. City does not do development. We just try to make it attractive enough where they come in and the private dollars be spent and build the buildings and the stores and that sort of thing. So, you know, there's not an easy answer for redevelopment areas, but there is a plan, but it takes a while. Do what?
Well,
Yes.
yes, they do, but that's where I was talking about the community getting involved. You know, we have meetings all the time, and we don't have anybody there from the community to talk about the sidewalk. When I'm sitting there talking about the sidewalk by myself, and there's 10 people over here saying we don't want the sidewalks, we're not gonna get the sidewalk. Everybody in the District 1 and District 3 has to get involved with what's going on in the community, the nonprofits, all the organizations that's out there. If you don't know who they are, get with an organization, ask that question. My thing that I learned years ago, if you're not asking questions, you're not gonna get the answer.
Right now, since I'm represented from District 6, but I also am aware of a lot of the other issues all over the city. Right now, the city of Tulsa has a developer that's willing to come to Tulsa and invest $80 million to build an outlet mall. $80 million to build an outlet mall. It just so happens to be in my district, which is underdeveloped, which is craving for some new activity like a lot of other parts of town. We need to act. When we have a developer that's willing to put up that kind of money, we need to act to go ahead and encourage him to build in anywhere in Tulsa. The reason the issue is so important is that right now we have a party outside of Tulsa that would be in Catoosa that says, oh, we're going to build something similar to that. Okay? Now, if you live in Tulsa or you live in Catoosa or you live whatever, you say, well, I don't care. I'm going to go to the outlet mall. It comes back to that issue about tax dollars. Okay? City of Tulsa lives on the tax revenue that's generated in those stores, or as I like to refer to, has cash registers. You have to have cash registers. Okay? So that kind of investment, if it happens in East Tulsa, will generate $4 million income to the city of Tulsa to build more streets, provide more police department, provide more firefighters. Everybody wins. If we sit on our hands and let it slip away, like happened with Bass Pro to Broken Arrow years ago, and it ends up in Catoosa, we lose.
Get zero.
We get nothing.
Okay.
I think it boils it down to something as simple as that. We all need to kind of realize that as a city, we're living on tax dollars, and we need to do everything in our power to make sure that when somebody shows up at the door willing to develop something new that will help us do that, we need to open the door and welcome them in.
Support.
Thank you.
Well, a couple different thoughts on that, and it's a great question. You know, one of the things other cities have just eaten our lunch on is having a point person in their city that helps businesses, particularly retail businesses, find a location there. Because a lot of these larger chains that are out there, they utilize software based on populations and demographics, and they take Tulsa's population into account, but then they find cheaper land in a suburban area, and so they locate their facility there. And for years and years and years, that happened over and over and over again. About 4 years ago, the council finally, over the mayor's objections, funded a position to do that work, and it's been really successful. A lot of the best success stories we've had as far as retail locations coming to Tulsa over the last 4 years have been because we've just had somebody minding the store. Again, this isn't brilliance, it's just having somebody show up to work who that's their job. But I think it also comes back to this other issue which I was talking about earlier, which is the way that we have everything set up right now necessarily the most efficient and the best way of having things organized to move our community forward in the long run? If we're spending our time worrying about Owasso getting, or Broken Arrow getting a Bass Pro or Catoosa getting an outlet mall, and we're not competing with Dallas or Atlanta or New York or Chicago, we're taking aim at our neighbors. I really think that we need to have a conversation regionally about whether or not we're organized for the 21st century in an efficient way.
Yes.
Last year in the Improve Our Tulsa program, 98% of that, which I was very proud of, was maintenance and repair of things we already have, which government historically does a terrible job of. One of the only things in there that was new and that I think is really exciting is the creation of a bus rapid transit system along Peoria. 1 in 7 Tulsans lives within a mile of Peoria on one side or the other. And that is set for construction. I want to say it's being designed right now, but that'll be set for construction here. I think it starts in about 4 years. And so with that, you'll have a stop every every mile, so that someone's no more than half a mile either way on Peoria from a stop. And right now, our bus system, it drives and it stops for anyone that flags it down. And because of that, that's one of the reasons we have such long commutes, because the system is unpredictable. They don't know when somebody's going to want them to stop or want them to pick them up. So the bus rapid transit system will basically be like a subway line on the street. There will be very nice stations that will tell you when it's going to be there, and it will be there every 12 minutes or less.
An actual covered stops with benches.
Yeah. That's what's that is what's funded. That's what we funded. To be honest with you, the hard part of it, and the reason we gave ourselves 4 years to ramp up for it, paying for the buses and the stations is not the hard part. The expensive part is paying for the people that drive all those buses, because there'll be a lot more of them. But that's important, one, because it'll offer better service all the way up and down Peoria.
And then one thing for people who live on Harvard, will they have an off on bus on 21st Street?
Yes, but the other big reason it's important, and then I'll shut up, is this will give Tulsans an idea of what a better mass transit system looks like, which they don't have right now. Unless they go to another city, they don't have a good idea of what it can be. And our hope in creating this is that people who don't use mass transit right now will use that line, and then they'll want a system going up and down, east to west instead of just north to south. But that's the idea.
Councilor Steele, you have anything to add to that?
Well, just briefly, I wanted to mention that Tulsa has a similar problem with Oklahoma City, is we have a huge area to cover. And 40% of Tulsa doesn't even have bus service. So we've got a long way to go. It's not just, it's a great start to focus on an area that, you want to focus on the low-hanging fruit. Up and down Peoria, that makes perfectly good sense. But we got a lot of areas of town that don't have any service, and, maybe never will. But hopefully someday that service up and down Peoria will be serviced by something more fixed, like a rail system or a monorail or something real futuristic. And then these buses can go out and service other areas of town that are a little more suburban. But anyway, thank you.
Councilor Patrick?
Yeah. Just remember that this is just the beginning of a great improved bus system, this rapid transit. Once it's in place and successful, there's plans to go out 11th Street east-west in a similar fashion and like I say, once you got to do this in phases because it costs so much to do this, but we have funded the first step in that improved transit system. And that's something that hadn't been done in 20 years.
Mr. Wild?
Just as this year we had 3 million riders on the bus system, I don't think anybody knows that that's the most we ever had in 10, 15 years. There's also another easy way to catch the bus that hasn't been put out yet. I don't even think the council y'all may know about. They have an app, and you can download that app and you can actually see what a bus is. And you can walk out of your house 5 minutes before your bus comes up. It's a great app. It's an MTT app. You download that app, you can go in and see where the bus is. And I mean, you can literally see it at that time exactly where it is and walk out your door and meet it at the bus stop.
Which is buses moving to specific stations, not stopping in between, and being at them every 12 minutes. So the longest you would have to wait is 12 minutes or less at any given time. The construction, buying the buses, building the stations, that is set. That was approved by voters last November. What we have to figure out is paying for gas and paying for bus drivers, which is going to be about $1 million increase per year over where we are right now. And we're looking at a whole lot of different options as to what that could be. It could be just a straight up appropriation from the city. It could be an assessment along the corridor there, that since businesses that are near those stops will benefit from increased population moving through there. There's all sorts of different possibilities, and what we've asked is the planning department to take a look at what those options are and get back to us on what they would recommend.
And
But
that's
that's the big nut to crack in the next 4 years.
And that's a
No question.
4-year time frame to
Yeah.
come up with them solutions.
Maybe all of the outlet malls will generate those.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
I guess that's going to be elected. You don't know. You're going on faith that I'm going to keep my word. But if I get in there and I don't implement this program, then you should vote me out in 4 years, period. All I'm saying is my track record is of telling the truth. And anybody who knows me knows that. And, you're not going to, my past tells you that I keep my word. I'll say that. Can I say something about the jail? Why is it that we can put people on ankle monitors for $15 a day? Because a lot of those people in the jail are pending crimes. They're just waiting for their trial or something to come up. Why don't we use the ankle monitors more for $15 a day, and we can actually know exactly where these people are? They can still go to work. Maybe they don't lose their jobs if they're on nonviolent crimes. Instead of spending $50 a day, keeping them locked up, and then they lose their job after they've been in there a week.
Wait,
The
are
biggest
you
issue-
suggesting a common sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, but the biggest issue is when you first get arrested and book you in jail before it goes to court.
Right.
That's what all the argument is about, that particular time frame, not after it goes to court and you get sentenced to whatever.
Right, so why can't they book you into jail, put you on an ankle monitor if you're having nonviolent crime, and then, you save tons of money.
Well, that makes too much sense.
Yeah.
And
Now, if you can convince the sheriff of doing that, we'll be good.
And remember, we don't get to be involved in that discussion.
Yeah.